This is Support is Sexy, episode 62, with international best-selling author and business coach, Kelly Roach. Welcome to the Support is Sexy podcast. I'm your host, Elaine Fluker, entrepreneur, author, producer, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I talk to women entrepreneurs who share their journeys and the true stories of their wins and their lessons, and give you insight and inspiration to take your business and your life to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I am so happy to have you here because it just would not be the same without you. So today we are welcoming Kelly Roach, and Kelly is the CEO of Kelly Roach Coaching, and she is also international best-selling author of the book Unstoppable: 9 Principles for Unlimited Success in Business and Life. And I will tell you, get a pen, a piece of paper, your phone, whatever you need to take notes safely if you're driving, because Kelly does drop quite a few jewels in this episode about your growth mindset, what you need to move forward, and how to become an unstoppable entrepreneur. So some of the things we talk about in this episode are why time is our most valuable resource, also the signs that it's time to move on from perhaps your full-time gig or whatever else you're doing and to pursue entrepreneurship and all that it offers, what blocks you from a growth mindset, also how your money mindset holds you back in your business, 3 tips for leveling up your mindset, also why gratitude is an important daily practice, how imperfection creates trust, something I really love because so many of us get stuck in perfection, but Kelly says imperfection is the way people really get to know you and trust you. And also how to become an unstoppable entrepreneur. So I know you're going to love this episode, chock full of good information. We had a few technical difficulties, but Kelly soars past it. Great information. You'll love it. So without further ado, Kelly Roach. All right. So Kelly, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Now I have to ask you the first question I ask everyone. When did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that it was kind of like a deep down kind of unconscious, subconscious thing for many years. But I think as I grew in my career and really got serious about like my family and my future and really what I wanted my vision of my life to be like, I think as I grew as a person, it was really kind of that turning point of realizing that to build the life that I wanted, I had to take complete ownership, through entrepreneurship of creating that versus trying to fit someone else's picture of it into my own life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Now, where did you grow up?
I grew up just about 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia in the suburbs. My family's from Exton, Pennsylvania. I live in Westchester, Pennsylvania. So nice family, very family-oriented town, really nice place to live. I really love it.
What was a young Kelly like growing up?
Oh gosh. Well, let's say this. I always was crazy about working. I was like the gatekeeper at the pool, the mother's helper as soon as I was old enough. I was always babysitting. In college, I had 3 jobs. So I was always kind of like a go-getter. I was always kind of wanting to push myself and learn new things and try new things and discover new things. And I always kind of was about if I can't, if my parents can't, provide me with something or give me something, how can I find a way to make it possible for myself? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where kind of the drive to work very hard and do a lot of jobs from a young age came from, because I didn't like getting no as an answer. And I got no a lot because we were a big family. We didn't have a lot of money. We really struggled financially. And so for me, it was all about, okay, like what adjustments do I need to make in order to make these things possible instead of just kind of settling for what I was handed or what was within their ability to do for me or give to me.
And it's interesting that plays into the work you do today, which is what we'll get to. But just that idea of you cannot be stopped. You're going to make this happen or figure out a way, the best way to do it. I love that.
Yes.
Now, who were some of your greatest influences growing up?
Growing up, that's a good question. I'm not sure, like at a young age. I mean, I think definitely, my parents were definitely huge influencers for me. I mean, they taught me kindness, respect, generosity, love, courage, confidence. They really gave me those parameters to live by. And I think that's really driven a lot of who I am as a person. But certainly as I got older, Napoleon Hill and Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins, these are all people that have really inspired me, motivated me, and educated me, on my entrepreneurial journey for sure.
How did you find out about people like Napoleon Hill, Wayne Dyer, and of course Tony Robbins is everywhere? But was it something that you discovered before you became an entrepreneur, or along your journey?
What's really interesting about it is my husband actually introduced me to them very early on when I was still in my corporate career and rising up through the corporate ladder. And I began studying and reading and, really absorbing everything that they taught. And I think I applied it very well to my corporate career. And then it's kind of interesting because it flipped over and it became that the path of my work almost aligned with a lot of what they do. But I kind of came at it from a different direction, if that makes sense. But he definitely was listening to their audiobooks and, exposed me to them before I even really knew what their work was all about. And they've been such huge catalysts in my life. So I'm very, grateful for that.
So you mentioned that you worked 3 jobs in college. Where did you go to college?
I went to Westchester University and I studied communications.
And you went into a career that was in sales right after that? Or when did you transition into going into sales, which I know you were very successful at?
Yeah. So I started off working for a Fortune 500 right after graduation. And I started off doing sales and then I very quickly moved to management. And from there, I really worked my way up the corporate ladder. I was promoted like 7 times in 8 years. And I really had a great experience and had the opportunity to do some pretty amazing things. I was running like 17 branches up and down the East Coast and traveling all over the place and meeting with CEOs and sitting in boardrooms, which I thought was my dream, Elaine. I really did. And it was an awesome experience. And I learned so much. But I also learned that if I continued on that path, I wasn't going to live a life that I loved because there was no time for life. Right. And so that's what really inspired me and made me realize that I needed to start my own business because that path was going to create less and less time. And, time is obviously our most valuable resource that we have that we can never get more of. We can never get back. And so I knew I had to start, my own business.
And what was that first step like when you decided that it was time to make that move? Well, was it a particular incident that made you say, you know what, I have to do this? Or was it just an accumulation of the time you were spending building your career? Because you were very successful at it. So at what point did you say, I got to do this? And what was your first step?
So it wasn't an incident or a moment so much as I had realized that I was compromising my health. I was missing my husband. I think he was my fiance at the time. I don't even know if we were married yet. I was missing time with family and friends. I didn't have any time to be a human. And it was just it just got to a breaking point where I realized that looking forward, if I continued on that path, that I was going to end up sick and I was going to end up sick and lonely and, making a lot of money, but not loving who I was or the life that I was living. So it was kind of a build up to that. And then my first step was really enrolling myself in an online business coaching program and reading tons of books and taking lots of courses and educating myself on what it would take to build an online business, because my experience had been in offline marketing and sales. And so I wanted to be able to combine that with online marketing and sales. So it was really kind of bringing those two things together. That was kind of the progression. I started off, serving clients one-to-one, doing, private coaching and consulting. And then over, the series of the last group programs and then products and courses and then the book and the podcast. So it's just kind of been like an evolution over time.
And how many years have you had your company now, which we should say is called Kelly Roach Coaching?
Yes. So I started taking clients in 2013. I started the business in 2012, but I really spent the first year doing a lot of studying and research and taking courses and stuff like that. And I was still working full time. So I started in 2013, actually taking clients.
And your company is a rapid growth coaching and consulting company. So how do you help your clients achieve rapid growth?
Yeah, definitely. So it's pretty extensive work that we do, and we do work with companies from startup through multi-million dollar firms. And essentially, what we do is we analyze what's happening in the business currently. And then we help design a strategy for rapid growth. And that looks different depending upon the stage of the business, the type of business, the skills of the entrepreneur. For some people, it's really, really simple. Like we need to help them get that first 100K. We need to help them go get 10 really good high paying clients to get to that 100K mark so they can invest in advertising and hire a team and get help in their business and do all those good things so they can scale up. Other clients already are at the $1 million mark, but they need help with efficiencies and maximizing performance with the staff and putting systems in place and automation and that type of thing. So there's a pretty wide range of what we do, and it's custom to the person and really, number one, what their needs are, but number two, what their goals are. Some people want to build a boutique, where it's very high end and they serve just a few clients at a very high price point, whereas other people want to build an empire and they really want leverage and scale. And so we really adjust our strategy, and I adjust my coaching based upon the wants and needs of the person at hand.
Awesome. Now, do you go into, say, if it's a bigger company, do you go in and teach or coach the entire team, or is it usually the head of the company or the lead of the company that's the key person that you'll work with in order to help them move in the right direction?
Yeah, definitely. So if it's an entrepreneur, small business owner, I typically am, just working directly with them. And we're really almost like a team during the time that I'm working with them. If it's a bigger company, it's typically one of two things. So either I'm going in and I'm consulting with the owner, president, leaders and giving them the strategy, and then they're going back and delivering it. Or they're hiring me to actually work directly, like with their sales team, for example, to do coaching and mentoring and help put the structure and metrics in place and follow up on the accountabilities and that type of thing. So it's just a little bit different dependent upon, again, what the wants and needs are of the company at hand.
Right. So like you said, it's customized to the client.
That's exactly.
Fantastic. Now, what blocks us from having a growth mindset? I know that's something that you speak about on your podcast and in your work. What blocks most of us from having that mindset? Or is it a blockage? Is it just we're not aware that we need to have it?
No, I mean, I think absolutely a lot of the reason why people don't achieve their goals comes down to mindset. In fact, in the Unstoppable Entrepreneur, which is my flagship 12-month coaching program, the very first set of modules are all around mindset. And what I explain to people over and over and over again, no one wants to start with work on mindset. Everybody wants to get into the other stuff. But I tell people, it's your mindset that's the reason why you're not at your goals. So if you skip over getting your mindset right, you can learn all the strategies, you can learn all the techniques, you can learn all this other stuff, but you're not going to implement it and you're not going to get any results. So, it's super important to start mindset. And more specifically, Elaine, one of the top things that I see with entrepreneurs is the money mindset. The money mindset is not there. And because of that, they don't make the right investments. They don't spend the money on the things that they need to. They don't invest in help. They don't spend money on visibility and advertising. And because of that, they stay small and struggle.
And what are the ways that I know obviously you can't give us your whole program. There's not enough time. It's a whole year-long program. But how do you, what are some of the suggestions that you have for people who are looking to, one, recognize that they may need to have a shift in their mindset, and then some of the first step to take to do that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, definitely recognizing that you have to work on mindset is the first step. And even if you're already highly successful, like I did a podcast episode the other day, and I was sharing that just recently I uncovered a limiting belief that I was having about money and in my own mindset. And I consider myself someone that's extraordinarily driven and aggressive. And I work hard on my mindset every day. It's a lifelong process of working on your mindset. It's never a one-time thing. So there's no one out there that doesn't have work to do on their mindset, because every time you get to one level, in order to get the next level, you're going to have to open up your mindset and refocus it and begin to, drive your energy and your efforts towards something new and different. So at every stage, if you want to become more successful, the first step is acknowledging you will have to up-level your mindset first. and do that. And then you can begin to start to see those results. And so some tips for people listening. Number one, surround yourself with visions and reminders and things that are going to keep you motivated and excited working towards your goals. So right now, Elaine, I have a 4-foot vision board in front of me. I'm staring at it while I do my interview with you. And it's reminding me of why I'm spending my time on this interview right now, to get my message out so I can move forward in accomplishing my goals and dreams. So make it visual, because the visuals are much more powerful to the brain, and they're going to connect more deeply with your subconscious. They're going to create an emotional connection to your goals, which means your brain is going to start finding ways and seeking out ways to accomplish them. So visuals are really important. Affirmations, most people have a lot of negative self-talk going on in their mind and in their brain. And as soon as you say, like, I'm going to create $1 million business, I can do this, there's something in your mind that says, no, you can't. Who are you? Right? Everybody has that. And sometimes it happens so fast and so naturally out of habit that we don't even realize it's happening. So creating positive self-talk, affirmations that keep you focused on looking up and looking forward towards your goals, and then doing things specifically that are going to allow you to raise your energy and raise your performance. So I have a little sign that's sitting in front of me right now that says sleep, gratitude, exercise, affirmations, vitamins, eat raw foods, and drink water. Because those are things, Elaine, that will raise my energy and put fuel in my mind and my body to be able to move forward towards my goals. Because without any fuel in the tank, you're not going to be able to have the energy, the passion, the drive to move forward towards your goals. So those are a couple tips to get people started with.
I love that. That's amazing. And I love that the last thing you just said about the sleep, vitamins, water, it sounds like simple things, but having a visual reminder there for yourself, especially in the space where you're working, where you could probably spend hours and do none of those things, is important to have in front of you.
Well, exactly. That's the whole thing. It's the simplest things in life that are the most important, Elaine, and they're the things that we most easily overlook, of course. And so for me, I know that I will miss these things. Like, I know that I need a reminder. That's why it's there. It's there because I will forget to do these things. I will literally sit at my desk and work for 5 hours and not move. And that's not good. That is not good.
Right.
So I put these reminders there because I'm reminding myself, you're a human. Your body is a vessel. It can only perform at the level that you support it and with the resources and the energy that you give to it.
That's awesome. Now, what about, do you practice meditation or anything from a health standpoint that also helps you in your business?
I do a gratitude meditation every morning and every night. It's part of like what I do. It's built into like the DNA of my system and my body. And I feel like that also has a lot to do with my mindset, because what I tell people all the time is, if you're being thankful and you're in tune with all of the blessings that you've been given, all of the things that you have been lucky enough to live and enjoy and experience every single day, it's really hard not to be positive. It's really hard not to be positive if you are in tune with gratitude. Gratitude gives you perspective, and perspective gives you enormous mental toughness and enormous mental capacity and strength. And so I do feel meditation is another thing that, just makes a transformational difference in your mindset for sure.
I love that, Kelly. That's great. Now, you have an international best-selling book, Unstoppable: 9 Principles for Unlimited Success in Business and Life. Now, if there were one key tip or principle that you could have our listeners walk away with, what would that be? What would be the one thing you want to say, make sure you take this with you?
Yeah. One of the quotes I have in the book, Elaine, says, you're entitled to nothing, but you can have absolutely anything. And I think that many times as entrepreneurs, we feel entitled to our success. We think because we work hard, we deserve this or we deserve that. And it's very easy to get knocked down and to kind of scrape our knees and maybe not get back up as quickly as we could or should. And I think it's very important to realize that we are entitled to nothing. There's an open opportunity to create the life you want, to create the business you want, to make the amount of money that you want, to have anything that you want. But, you're going going to have to do the work. You're going to have to invest in yourself. You're going to have to go through the same ups and downs and struggles that everyone else did to get to that place that you want to be. And by the way, you're not going to get there. There's no shortcut to success. You're not going to get the result that you see other people getting that you want without doing the work that they did to get there. And, I think one other key thing I'll kind of note there is it's very important to not be comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. Right? People look at people that have been 15 years in the making and they're comparing, to themselves. And obviously there's no comparison there. And that can be very depressing. You have to have a realistic understanding. There is a time element to success. And it's very important to understand that because being an entrepreneur is a marathon. It's not a sprint, and you have to be in it for the long game if you want to get to the point where you actually get to experience the freedom, the fun, the fulfillment, the excitement of the results, that comes after the sacrifice, not before, right?
Yes, that's very crucial advice. And one of the things I know that you mentioned on a recent podcast was the difference between the daydreamers and the people who get down and dirty I'm paraphrasing, the people who get down and dirty in the work. And it's to speak to what you just said, it's so easy sometimes to get caught up in the daydream or seeing, say, on social media or everywhere else. And then you start comparing yourself and thinking, okay, I want that within the next few months. And like you said, not thinking about the fact that you have to really be in it for the long haul.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think going back to mindset, again, Aline, what you said there, money mindset is absolutely one of the biggest things that's going to make or break you there. Because what I see all the time is entrepreneurs that want success, but they're not willing to invest in their success. You will have to sacrifice. You will have to take money that you would rather spend somewhere else and put it into advertising. You will have to take money that you'd rather spend somewhere else and put it into hiring support. These are the sacrifices that those people, myself included, you probably included as well, these are the sacrifices that successful people make in order to scale their business, in order to have success. And it's not easier for anyone, but it is a catalyst for rapid growth. And the extent to which you're willing to invest in yourself is the extent to which you're going to see success in anything that you do.
Yes. Now, another thing you spoke about on a recent podcast was the importance of progress over perfection. And I think that's something, perfection or getting it perfect, I think is something that probably a lot of all entrepreneurs, but I know especially some of the women entrepreneurs I know kind of hold things back or don't launch or move forward because they're caught up in this idea that it has to be perfect. Can you speak to us a little bit about that and how that could hold us back?
Yeah, I mean, that's another big thing that really does hold people back tremendously. And, what I just did a video about this actually, and I said, imperfection is what creates trust, right? So people trying to hide behind being professional or being perfect is the number one thing that's going to prevent your audience from feeling a sense of connection to you, because people buy from people that they either like or want to be like. And people feel much more comfortable with other people that are human, humanize yourself. So the more you can get comfortable with getting it done versus getting it perfect, the faster your business is going to go, the more profitable you're going to be, and the more connection people are going to feel with your brand.
And I always try to tell people too, there's learning in action. Like you learn as you go. No one starts out right away knowing exactly what even if you think you know everything, you'll still find out something that you don't know along the way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, if there's one thing you wish someone would have told you about entrepreneurship before you started or before you made that leap, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing, Elaine, is that you have to fail in order to learn. I came from a really successful corporate career where I had a lot of control over my success. I felt very comfortable. I had been there for over a decade. I was very much in control. There weren't a lot of surprises to me anymore. Entrepreneurship is the polar opposite of that.
Exactly.
You fail at everything. You fail at everything you do the first time you do it. There's a price to pay. It's not, you can't you can't think yourself into being successful. You can only do and then get better, and then do and then get better, and do and get better. So I think I would have, I wish I had better understood how much failure would be required in order to succeed, so that I could pace myself and really get that and understand that, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. And I think, I don't know how else to phrase this, but it's sort of like you get better at failing. Not that you want to fail, obviously, but it's just part of the process. Like I have a friend who says no is just a part of the process. You sort of get used to people saying no, and you keep going until you get that yes, that is the right yes. And I feel like that with failure as an entrepreneur, you just get used to that being a part of the process, or not knowing exactly what to do, even if not failing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great point. And I think to add to that, you also learn how to bounce back from failure much more quickly.
Right.
So, for me, like I'll have something bad happen, and within a minute I can get my mind track, I can get myself back on track and be like, okay, move forward next. Like, whereas 3 years ago, it might have taken me days, right?
Mm-hmm.
To like pull myself back together and get over it and figure out what I was going to do. So I think that's the whole challenge that we all have, is how quickly can you bounce back from failure and keep moving forward? And can you develop that mental toughness to not internalize it, but instead strategize with what you just learned and figure out how to use it to be more successful next time?
And I would imagine mindset plays into that too. Just having that mindset of, I'm going to break stuff along the way.
Absolutely.
And it's okay. And I can keep moving. I always say, as an entrepreneur, you can't be afraid to break stuff. Excellent.
Exactly.
Now, what's the greatest lesson you would say having a business has taught you about yourself as a woman?
Oh, wow. Well, I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. And so, being in business for myself and being a mom and, having a family and a husband and dogs and a house and, like a life, it's really taught me the importance of knowing your value system. And for me, I've sacrificed a lot over the last couple of years in I work many less hours, than I probably would have otherwise, because I know that my highest and most important value and position in life right now is as a mom and a wife. And I know that time with my daughter, I'll never, ever be able to get back again. She's home full time. My husband's home full time with my daughter. And so, I work a lot less than I ever have at any point in my life. And I think I will look back and be glad that I made that choice, even though I'm so passionate about my business and I love my business and this is the work of my life. I think I've just learned to make important what's most important and to understand the value of time with the people that you love, and that nothing can replace that. And that, at the end of the day, you can always put more time into your business, but you can't get time back with the people that you care about.
Yeah, that's so powerful. What would you say that, because it's also powerful to hear someone say, I love my business. I love what I do. I think that's something that a lot of people are trying to achieve in their lives, to really love what they do, because work is a part of life for most of us. What do you love most about your business or your work?
Oh, without a doubt, seeing the results that my clients get. That is what that's the purpose of my life, is to help people be successful. I came from a background of financial struggle, and I was able to conquer that successfully. And, my mission now is to help 1 million people become financially free through their own businesses. So without a doubt, the most motivating thing for me is just seeing results for my clients. That's all I want, is to know that someone that came in contact with me was left better, and it impacted them and their family in a positive way.
Awesome. I love that. Now, what does your support network look like? You mentioned your team a little bit. I know you have your husband and your family, but what does your support network look like that helps you build this business that you're creating?
Yeah. So for me, I don't, I right now in my life with what I have going on with my family, I don't have a lot of time for like networking, or I don't attend a lot of events because I'm trying not to travel a lot, because it's very important to me to be home with my family right now. So I'm not involved in like a ton of different like groups or anything like that. My support system really is my family. It's my team in my business, of course, my friends. But as an entrepreneur, I'm always investing in like programs or training courses or mentoring, memberships and that type of thing. So I really learn by finding the person that's the best at whatever it is that I want to implement in the business, and then going and buying their course, their program, whatever it is, and following their system. And that's the biggest tip I'll give for people is don't try to go figure something out and waste all this time and all this money when there's someone else that did all that work already that's selling an exact system for you to follow. And that's been a huge learning for me, even to the point that now I buy specific training programs and courses for my different team members in an area that they're going to be working on in my business. So even if it's something that I don't have time to do, I'll put a team member in it so that they can benefit from it and utilize it in the task that I'm assigning them in the business.
Wow, I think that's so smart. One, that to mention that you as a coach and someone who helps people, also you continue to take these courses and things, because I think sometimes people might think, oh, I took this course in X and now I don't ever have to do that again. But it's a constant learning. And as you said, even with your team members, making sure whatever their specialty is, you find a course that might be beneficial for them. So it sounds like it's something that's a part of your ongoing way of doing business.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it'll be a lifelong thing. I think the second that you stop learning, you're not living. I mean, I think living is learning and growing, and progress is really the most exciting thing about life. So no, I think it's a never ending process. Just like I said, mindset is something you need to work on every single day. The same thing goes for learning and growing in your business. There's always something new to learn. There's always a way to improve. There's always a way to leverage yourself to get better results in less time. Mm-hmm. And there's a myriad of unlimited ways to do that.
And I think also what you mentioned, I think Tony Robbins says success leaves clues. So this idea sometimes people have that they're going to figure everything out on their own. But as you said, there's someone who is likely done whatever it is you're trying to do. Learn from the best person, which could mean buying a book or watching a video or going through their course. There's always a way to find the best way to do something.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Now, what's next for you? What are you most excited about today?
Yeah. You know what? This year has been a huge year of change for me. We launched the podcast last October. In March, we launched the book. In March, we launched The Unstoppable Entrepreneur. We hired a bunch of new team members. So we launched 3 new courses this past year. So it has been just a year of change and craziness. So to be honest, what I'm most excited about, Aline, is taking all of these new resources and all of these new things that I did all the work over the last few years to create, and leveraging them up and scaling them up and just refining our ability to make a difference for more people. So I'm most excited about spending 2017 just helping more people, reaching more people, and making a bigger difference with the things that we've already kind of put out there in the universe.
And tell everyone the name of your podcast. I know I mentioned that it's Unstoppable, but you have another, and it comes on 3 days a week, right?
Yes. So the show is called Unstoppable Success Radio, and it's on iTunes and Stitcher and like 15 other platforms. And it's really just all about helping people go further, faster, and accomplishing their goals. I do teaching segments. I do Ask Kelly segments. I bring guests on, and it's actionable strategies that are going to leave people with the ability. Well, you listen to it, so
Yes, I know.
It's giving people real things to take back and implement right away to get results. It's all about helping people get results. So I would love people to check out the show.
Awesome. And I'll have a link to that, of course, and a link to your book as well. And then tell us your course. Is that something that people have to apply to be into? I know it's a 12-month course.
Yeah, definitely. So the link is kellyroachcoaching.com/yes. So just kellyroachcoaching.com/yes. And that is the Unstoppable Entrepreneur. It's a coaching, training, and mentorship program. And it includes weekly coaching calls with me, a membership site with over 100 different videos, audios, swipe files, cheat sheets on everything you could ever want or need to grow your business, private Facebook group, and a whole myriad of other things. But yeah, people can check that out there. And even if you're not sure if it's right for you, you can apply for a consult with me. Just email my team at customersupport@kellyroachcoaching.com.
Perfect. And I will definitely have links to all of that for everyone. That's fantastic. Kelly, thank you so much for your time and patience this morning with Skype and everything. I really appreciate it. You've given fantastic tips.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on the show. It was a true pleasure, and we look forward to sharing it out with our audience.
Absolutely. So I have just one other question for you. If you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
Oh, that's so hard. I would say two people. I would say my mom, because my mom said to me at a very young age, you can have anything you want if you're willing to do the work to achieve it. And she said it kind of laughing because she was saying no to me about something that I wanted,
Uh-huh.
but it stuck with me. It stuck with me, and it's the mantra of my entire life. So her, and she sacrificed in so many ways to, show us love and give us courage and help us with following our own paths. And then definitely my mentor, Dave, who, was one of my first bosses in my corporate career. And I mean, he taught me everything that I ever needed to know about business, about life, about success. And, just he always believed in me, and he had higher aspirations for me even than I had for myself. So that's a pretty amazing thing.
Awesome. Kelly, thank you so much. Before you go, just a parting piece of advice from you for our listeners. Not that you
I
haven't
think
given
it's
us
just,
tons of great advice
yeah,
already.
no, definitely. Well, I think the biggest thing is, dream big, go after whatever it is in your heart that you truly believe is possible for you. I always say to people, if you have a dream, you were given that dream for a reason, because you were meant to achieve it. So dream big, but most importantly, take action. And this is how I always end the podcast. You probably know that. Take action, because action is the only way you can make a dream reality. And then thirdly, don't stop until you make it happen, because there is a time element to success. And if you work hard for long enough, you will get there.
Perfect. Kelly Roach, thank you. Fantastic. Hold on just a second for me. All right. Thank you so much for listening to that episode of the Support is Sexy podcast. And I do hope that you got some inspiration from it. And the challenge is for you to do at least one thing. Take one thing from the episode, at least one thing. You can always do more, but at least one thing that will help you move one step closer to your dream. Whether that's launching a business, writing a book, whatever that thing is that you want to do, take something from this episode and move one step closer. And what I'll also ask of you, if you can tell me what you think about the episodes, what we've been doing, what you want to hear, what you like, what you experience while you're listening, go over to iTunes, leave us a review, and let me know what's going on. What are you thinking? What are you feeling about the show? What else can I do to be of service to you, which is what this is all about, to be of support to you. That's our buzzword, right? You can also go to our website, supportissexypodcast.com. That's supportissexypodcast.com. Hear more episodes there. Also have a bunch of great videos, tons of information. It's where I'm going to be spending a lot of time, and it's where I love to connect with you. So again, thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate you and your support. And the most important thing I want you to remember is having it all does not mean doing it all alone. So now, go out there and create something sexy, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.